calling all sort of out, newly out, or fully out lesbians. We are going to Provincetown.
Wing Women Weekend, October 16th to 20th, 2024, is your opportunity to join our crew and enjoy Provincetown's annual Women's Week.
One of the biggest challenges we hear from the lesbians we work with, especially those of us new to this community, is how intimidating it can be to connect with other LGBTQIA plus women and to find that all-important queer community.
I know, and you all want to be connected to the community so much and to meet new queer friends. And, hey, you never know, maybe even meet somebody special. But we can also know that it can be super intimidating to do these things alone.
So let us be your co-pilots as we enjoy some amazing activities in Provincetown, one of the gayest small towns in America, during their annual event for queer women of all ages.
Enjoy meeting new friends with us as your wing women.
It's the queer event of the year you won't want to miss.
Details at www.wingwomenweekend.com. That's wingwomenweekend.com. Embracing your LGBTQIA plus identity, especially after you've lived as a straight person for a long time, it's not as easy as just flicking a switch from straight to gay.
If only it were that easy. But the reality is that it takes a lot of work to untangle us from our old lives and transition into our new lives. That is why we call it the messy middle.
And if you are currently in the messy middle, that could mean coming out or figuring out your sexual identity and even divorce. Well, if that describes you, we have a workshop that is just for you.
From July 8th through 10th at 7 p.m. Central Time, we will be running a free workshop, Life Reimagined, Transforming Through the Messy Middle on Zoom. It's for any women, cis or trans or non-binary people comfortable in women's spaces who are grappling with the realities of coming out and perhaps navigating divorce.
It's free to sign up. Just head over to comingoutssupport.net to register, and you must register to attend.
Again, that's July 8th through 10th at 7 p.m. Central Time. It is free to attend. Sign up at comingoutssupport.net.
Hey queer friends, are you ready to be inspired? Welcome to Season 5 of Coming Out and Beyond, a podcast that shares stories from the LGBTQIA plus community. Here's your host, Anne-Marie Zanzal.
Hi, this is Anne-Marie Zanzal, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Coming Out and Beyond. I am very excited to welcome Jill Holliday to the show today. Jill embodies courage and resilience, embracing life's challenges with unwavering determination. As a teen mom, she faced early adulthood with remarkable strength, marrying at 18 and dedicating herself to being a stay-at-home homeschooling mom of two. Once her youngest graduated high school, Jill set out on the ambitious journey of through hiking the Appalachian Trail, a testament to her adventurous spirit and perseverance. Despite facing injuries that forced her off the trail multiple times, she triumphed and completed the trail on October 1st, 2018. At the end of 2018, Jill began a new chapter in her life, courageously embracing her true identity. Her divorce, finalized in early 2020 after 25 years of marriage, marked another significant transition, underscoring her ability to navigate life's most daunting challenges. Now Jill looks forward to the freedom and adventures of van life, ready to explore new horizons with the same bravery and optimism that has always defined her journey. Jill Holliday, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. So I'm going to let you all in on a little secret. Jill was in a conference of ours in 2019. She got signed up and came without really knowing me. I didn't know who this person was. And she came to this conference and has since become an incredibly dear friend of mine. She will be joining us in our Wing Women's Weekend, which is in Provincetown in October 16th through 20th, 2024. And she'll be talking about her own spirit of adventure and finding herself on the Appalachian Trail, but also her next adventure, which is going to be the van life that she's going to lead. So, Jill, I'm going to start off with the question that I ask everybody on the podcast. Tell me your story.
Oh gosh. It probably started in childhood. I
Yeah.
think had I not been raised in the church, then I probably would have been a lesbian my whole entire life. Through lots of therapy, I have learned or remembered some of the things that happened early on in childhood, some traumas, and then some not so traumas. I was always a tomboy, rode a skateboard, was one of the guys, I had the mullet in the 80s. It was, and I was always told that you're supposed to dress a certain way. You're supposed to behave a certain way. And how are you going to have a boyfriend if you don't behave a certain way or dress a certain way? So I, conformed for a many number of years. I became a mom in high school and then did what I was supposed to do kind of backwards, which I kind of do everything backwards. I got married with a toddler and had another child, and then proceeded to just do the stay-at-home mom, Christian mom, church all the time, do what you're supposed to do. But I never fully felt like, I always felt like I was in the wrong place. Like I always felt like I was, like something was missing. So I filled my cup with homeschool, kids, husband, family. I cared for grandparents. I cared for siblings. I did all of those things. And I always had, like, I didn't realize that it was an attraction, but now I know that that's what that was. I always had just certain people that I came across in life. I just wanted to just get close to them, like, and just had this attraction that I now know that's what that was. And then went off after homeschooling the kids and hiked the Appalachian Trail. I did a couple 100 miles and fell and tore my.
So my first question for you is, okay, why the Appalachian Trail? Like, why did you say, I am going to hike the Appalachian Trail? I know that previous to this, that you did, I think, marathons or triathlons and stuff like that. So it sounds like you're somebody who really likes a physical challenge.
Yes.
And so why the Appalachian Trail?
I'd been reading about it, in homeschooling kids, we traveled all over and I taught them all about the world and different things. And we had always camped with the kids. I grew up camping. I grew up hiking. I grew up just being in the outdoors and I loved it. And I found the book Becoming Odessa by Jennifer Farr Davis and was like, oh my gosh, people actually do this. And so I read it and then found a hiking group and started doing little hikes. I had been injured in my running marathon career, I guess you'd say. I had sustained a bunch of fractures and stuff. So I could not continue running and I still needed that runner's high. So long distance hiking was the next best thing. So I did set out to through hike before I set off into my new career or whatever I had decided I was going to do. So it was kind of my, what do you call it? My gap year between like raising kids and what I wanted to do, because I went from high school to be, I was a mom in high school. So then I went to just being a stay-at-home mom. And so I'd always taken care of everyone else. And I had no clue after raising two kids through high school what I wanted to do, like what I still enjoy doing, what was me. And I thought that, the joke was with my ex-husband was, well, you can go stay for a month in Aruba or you can go do your hike. And I was like, ooh, Aruba for a month or 6 months on my own. So that seemed like a better way
Well,
to find.
it must have felt like, after being so in charge of everything and taking care of humans for such a long time, and you started like as a child yourself,
Mhm.
because you had your daughter when you were 16 or 17.
Just turned 17.
Okay, so you were 17, you were still a child, and all of a sudden you're thrust into this role of being a mom and then having another baby, which a lot of teen moms do. I mean, that happens all the time. Um, I bet you were craving to be alone.
Yes, I was craving to just to figure out who I was and to have that quiet time. And I had read so many things about the Appalachian Trail and how every book that I read and consumed just said, it changes you. You spend day after day after day for 2,200 miles with your thoughts. And some people can't handle day in and day out, 8, 10, 12-hour days with just their thoughts. It is a very difficult thing. You bargain with a lot a lot with yourself. Um, but I knew that I had to do something that was just for me, that was just mine, that wasn't anyone else's. And it was amazing. It was, I mean,
Well, I understand that because you and I were about the same age because I went to divinity school when I was 42, and I think you hiked the trail when you were about 40, 41, 42.
7 years, yeah, 8 years.
Yeah, and so, like, I knew, which is perfectly appropriate for midlife, right? When you're in midlife, your role, your task is to say, okay, do I want to live the life that I've always been told I'm supposed to live, or do I want something different?
Yeah.
And so it sounds like for you, you started on this trail like, okay, I need something different. This is not working for me. I know we've talked before, and your marriage was tough,
Mhm.
and so you were like, I got to find something different.
Yeah.
So, Appalachian Trail, what was the hardest thing about it?
Um, really being in your mind. I mean, it was exhausting. The bugs, the bears, the snakes, but mentally it was mentally, we call it type 2 fun because afterwards you can look back on it with fondness and you're like, oh, I might do that again, or I might do something similar. um it was hard. It like everything, like cumulatively, physically, mentally, emotionally. Um, but it was also at the same time difficult. It was also easier than anything I had ever done up until that point
Why do you say that?
because it was something that I at 100% actually wanted to do. It wasn't something that I was doing because society or someone said I had to. It wasn't something that I was doing because I felt an obligation to do
Mhm.
or it was my role to do.
Mhm.
It was something that I wanted just for me, something like just mine.
Mhm. And so the hard part was being in your head all the time.
Mhm. Yes.
And so when you were in your head, what were you thinking about?
Um, the towards the middle and the end of the trail, I was in divorce negotiations with my ex-husband, so there was a lot of that. But then there was also just a lot of like, why do I feel the way that I do? Why do I think the way that I do? Do I really think that way about this? Or is that something that someone else or that I was raised to believe that? Um, and I kind of figured out as I was, halfway through the trail, I'm hiking along like, you know, all by myself, just going up this hill that was brutal. and another hiker, as they always did, just hiked along. Some of them would talk, some of them wouldn't. And this hiker stopped, and they, spoke with me, very kind, very encouraging. And as they hiked on, I was like, holy shit, like beautiful, just like, and I was like, where did that come from? Where it wasn't a, like, I noticed humans that are attractive, or I notice humans that are beautiful, or, pleasant, or anything. It was like, I had this feeling of like, I want to know this person. And I didn't know that that's like, I want to know this person as a friend. I want to get to know this person. They're beautiful. So, yeah.
So that is the person that you eventually had a relationship with, I'm assuming, right?
No.
No. Okay. So tell me more about that.
So hiking. I didn't think any, as they hiked on, I was like, man, I want to talk to that person again, but they were a very fast hiker. So went on, got to the hostel that night, and that person was there, and I was able to talk with them and stuff. And I didn't think any more about it. As I went on, I was like, oh my gosh, they're just super cool. They just really enjoyed talking with them. Went on, and as the days went on, I thought, you saw people that were hooking up, and they call it pink blazing, when men chase women or women chase men. And I thought, well, if I was ever going to do anything, would I want to sleep with a guy? No, I wouldn't want to sleep with a guy. I really would want to sleep with a woman. And then I thought, oh my God, that's the weirdest thing I've ever thought. That's so like, being raised in the church. Then I had that whole entire, like, got to get that thought out of my head.
Well, yeah, because you were raised in a very conservative denomination where being gay was
Mhm.
like, it's like being a murderer. So,
Yeah. Yes.
like it must have shocked you when you had that thought.
It absolutely was. I tried to like shove it down, you know, put it aside, because I was like, no, that's you can't do that. You know, I was a stay-at-home mom. Stay-at-home moms don't do this. Don't think like this. Do this kind of,
They do, Jill.
you know. So so then one night we're all sitting around the campfire, and people were talking, and it was like not a truth or dare, but just a relaxing time. And they were like, oh, has anybody ever hooked up on the trail? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, would you? And I was like, well, if I did hook up on the trail, it would probably be with a woman. And everybody there just was like floored, because I was like, well, life's too short, right? But between this time, that time, and it was, I had spent weeks processing all of this stuff. I hadn't, you know, I hadn't talked to anybody really, other than some of my friends on the trail. One was bisexual, one was a lesbian, there was married couples, there was like everything on the trail.
Yeah,
So
on the spectrum. Yeah,
yeah,
everything on the spectrum.
so it was nice to be able to openly talk to people without having,
Any judgment.
yes, and to be able to ask questions.
Because I know the world you come from, and if you like announced at family dinner you wanted to sleep with a woman, that would not go over very well.
Right.
Well, yeah. So when you said this, like, nobody reacted badly. It was just, oh, just curious. It was more one of curiosity. It's really, I have now. This is just a side question. People that hike the Appalachian Trail, what are often, I'm just curious, what are their political leanings? Are they all over the place?
All over the place. But
Oh,
the best part is that very rarely were there conversations about what you did. Very rarely were there conversations about your political views.
mhm.
The closest thing I can remind that it reminds me of is like Mayberry. Like the trail life and the community on the trail is very protective of one another, and just the kindness that they have.
Mhm.
Um, it was unlike anything I had experienced growing up. Like growing up in the church, everybody was very judgmental if you were very different or didn't
Yeah,
believe
if
this.
you fit in the church, you're fine.
Right.
Like if you're somebody who fits into the church, there people are kind to you, they help you out, they'll help you with your kids. If you're sick, they'll pray for you. They'll do all those things. But if you're not in the norm that they have established, then it's sort of hard to work your way into a church community. And so I can understand that, like, it must have been really nice for you and refreshing to just have people just be nice and there's no strings attached.
Mhm. Yep.
Hmm. Okay. So you said this. All right. So I know you slept with a woman on the trail. So what happened without naming names or anything like that? What happened?
Um, it's really hard to say what really happened. Is there were there were friendships, and one of those friendships kind of blossomed, and it was great.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was wonderful. It
Hmm.
was scary. It was all of those things, but at the same time, it wasn't reality, I guess. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
on
because you guys are in a totally altered universe, right?
Yeah, because all we're doing every day is you hike up and down mountains to the next town. So it's 3 days, 4 days, 5 days that you're out on the trail. Everyone has you don't go by your real name. You have
Hmm.
a trail name. Holiday was my trail name because I was essentially on holiday, on vacation from being a mom and all of that. And so it was amazing, and I learned so many things about myself. I had great communication. I was able to ask questions of this person and my friends at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, I learned a lot.
Okay. So I know that the relationship with her did not like last after you got off the trail. Was that intentional on both your parts? Did you try to make it last? Or was it just like you both knew that it was reserved for this time when you were hiking?
We both knew that it was reserved for that time.
Really cool, actually. So she was your catalyst, but like she wasn't your catalyst in the sense that you got really hooked by that relationship.
Right.
Because we both know about people who've had catalysts that get super, super hooked, but you didn't get like, oh my God, I've got to be with her for the rest of my life or anything like that. No. Okay. So you get off the mountain. You're in Maine. Where's the end of the trail in Maine again?
It's in Baxter State Park, Mount
Okay,
Potato.
you're in Baxter State Park and you get off the trail and you go home. Tell me what that was like.
It was it was good to see my children because a lot of there were several things that happened while I was gone on the trail with my children. So it was good to be home and see my kids. Um, it was not good to come home and start to jump back into a straight life and divorce
Mhm.
proceedings and divorce negotiations. It was it was when you come off the trail after you've been in the woods for 6 months and you come back to your real life, or your life before the trail, you're not the same, whether you've had a life-changing event like that or not. It's just the trail. Everybody that comes home off the trail is different for different reasons. So I struggled with, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I just go back to straight life? Do I pursue this coming out? And I was blessed that my catalyst from the trail, that she found you
Mhm.
and said, you know, here is somebody that's gonna support you and encourage you and help you to decide what you want to do. She supported me no matter what as a friend, and that was great to have that. So it was hard. The 2019 was really hard.
When you were already getting divorced before you even realized you were gay. So, right?
We were in divorce negotiations, divorce negotiations. He did not want that. He's like, you know, we can figure it out. We can, you know, but I knew that so much would have had to have changed for it to be.
Well, you're gay, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't have worked because you're gay.
Before.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Before.
So did you tell your husband about that experience on the trail?
I did.
Yeah. When you came home or like months later?
It was months. It was 2019 before I said anything. That probably the beginning of 2019.
Mm, mhm.
And it was suggested to, oh well, let's just, you live your life and I'll live my life and we'll stay married. And you know um but I knew that I didn't want that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, what's the point in that?
Right.
What is the point of staying married to somebody that you have nothing in common with? And the only thing you have in common is financial stuff,
Yeah.
like, and so you started this process, and I know that like you coming out to the people you love has been really, really challenging. Your family has not been really kind at times. And so what would you give? What would your piece of advice be, since you're now a couple years past all of this, for someone who's in the midst of like coming out and they have parents or siblings or other people in their lives that are just not accepting and can be mean sometimes?
Mm. Probably I'd have to answer that through the how I would give myself advice,
Hmm.
because 2019 I started coming out to everyone, and I wish that someone would have said, which I'm sure you probably did multiple times, is it this is just the messy middle and it's okay. And the more you focus on loving yourself and living your authentic life,
Hmm.
the less difficult it's going to be. And there were days, I know I called you multiple times just in hysterics when, my bonus family outed me to my daughter, and for months she carried that secret, that was very difficult. I went to therapy. I did a lot of stuff before I came out to my children, because I raised them in the church, and I raised them that what I was doing, the life I now wanted to live, was not right.
Hmm.
And so I had a lot of therapy and a lot of stuff, and my daughter struggled a lot with it, more so than my son did. He's the comedian, so
And he's
more so.
much more easygoing about that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Um,
Go ahead.
but that I would say that, you ultimately you have to love yourself, and you have to have those boundaries. You have to to learn boundaries that, like, I've had to learn boundaries that I never had. Boundaries with how I want to be treated, how I want my body to be treated, how I want other people to treat me, and how I want to be treated, how I want to treat others. And in the messy middle, it's hard. It's hard. It's probably one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through, as far as
It's almost like the messy middle is like everything gets smashed into thousands and thousands of pieces. And then you slowly, like, sort of look at them and you decide what you're going to keep. And then you don't put it back together to look like what it used to. You put it back together to suit you and your needs. And it's really, really challenging, but it's also really temporary. I find that there are some people that get stuck there because
Yes.
they're sort of half in, half out. I find that people who open their marriages often get stuck there because they have a girlfriend, they have their husband, they can't seem to make any moves forward.
Right.
So they get really stuck. You're not supposed to stay in the messy middle.
No,
You're supposed to go
no.
through it. You're supposed to go through it because it's incredibly painful. And I also wanted to mention something too. You know, and I have, like, since you've come out, I mean, I've been doing this 5 more years, right? So
Right.
when I first met you, I was like a year into doing this. And one thing I really, really believe now is not everybody deserves your story. And even parents, until you are really, really ready to tell them, don't deserve your story, especially when you know somebody is going to be challenging. Really want people that are, I always say to my clients now is make sure you pick somebody that's going to be okay. And if they're not okay, that's a bad experience. But 99% of the time, most people pick somebody that at least is like, oh, thanks for telling me and stuff like that. Um, so, what would you tell somebody who is, you know, who has this longing to go on to a great adventure? Doesn't have to be hiking the Appalachian Trail, it can be something else. What would you tell them? How should they go about doing this? Because it sounds like you did a lot of reading and planning before you actually did it.
I did lots of reading, lots of planning. I went to Appalachian Folk School and did some hikes with them. Um, do it. Do it. Do it scared, do it nervous, do it with friends, do it by yourself, but just do it. Like, everybody's great adventure is different.
Mhm.
For some people, their great adventure is getting married in their mid late 30s or 40s. Some people it's changing a career when you've done what your family, or went into the family business.
Family business, or you became a lawyer because your mom was a lawyer.
Right. Right. And deciding to become a pastry chef or something like that. Do it. Start small. I started with little bitty hikes around Nashville. I'm born and raised in Nashville. So I started with hikes around Nashville, joined backpacking clubs and hiking clubs and that type of thing. And the more that I got into it, the more it kind of fueled that fire and that desire. And to feel that accomplishment of something that I did, of something, that I created, whether it's a business, a anything. I mean, it could be, you want to make the world's largest quilt, or, Guinness World Records, jump rope. It could be anything. And I think that, we don't, in this day and age, we focus on working to pay bills, to work, to pay bills, to have things, and rinse and repeat. And I think that we miss out so much on joy of just life, like whatever it is. If you want to visit all of the national parks, if you want to visit all the baseball fields, if you want to, travel to all the car museums or any of those things. Learn how to go to school and learn how to work on Harley Davidsons or whatever it is. Like, find your passion and feed it. And if you try something and you don't like it, like I tried cycling when I was told that I shouldn't run anymore. I tried cycling. And of course, I do everything backwards. I jumped in and I registered for a century ride, which is 100 miles in one day. And I was like, I don't even own a bike. And so I did that, realized I hate riding in traffic. And I'm not a huge fan of, I love riding my bike, but not in traffic, not on the edge of the traffic in the roads. So I was like, okay, what's next? Check. I tried it, move on. So just try it. And
Okay, so you're trying something new.
yes,
That in a couple of months that you're thinking about doing van life. So
yes.
tell me why van life?
I, ever since I was little, I wanted to own a Volkswagen bus and live in it. I was born 10 years too late for hippie life, and
Parents were hippies before they became
my
conservative Christians.
yes, they were hippies when I was even a young child, and so that was a big
Suddenly
start.
overnight, they became conservative Christians.
Oh, it was pretty
By
much,
the way, that happens a lot because people who are extremely liberal and extremely conservative, if you think of it on a continuum, they're at the top of the circle, and you only have to take a couple of steps to go to the other side. And a lot of times, like in my church work, I like your parents doing that doesn't surprise me because people are often looking for answers. So they did the whole hippie thing, didn't find the answers, and then they went to a church that told them they had the answers, and they took it hook, line, and sinker.
yeah, pretty much.
So now you're going to live in a van. And
Yeah.
what's your first goal in living the van?
Um, my first goal is probably to visit some of my friends that I have met through the last years hiking and just in different adventures. I lived in Washington State for a hot little minute and fell in love with the Pacific Northwest, and I want to explore that area some more and just do whatever the hell I want to do, which is, you know, kind of everybody's idea of a good time, I guess.
Yeah. So I want you to tell about, I mean, you mentioned this. I want to end this and then I'm going to ask you my questions. Your legal name is now Holiday. Can you
Yes.
talk about that a little bit?
So when I came home from the trail, I knew that when we finally got to the point of divorce, I'd been married. We actually signed our divorce documents on our 25th wedding anniversary during COVID.
Wow.
Yes, on our actual 25th wedding.
Neat.
Um, it so I knew that, like, in the divorce decree, it gave me two options. I could keep my married name, or I could go back to my maiden name. And at the time, I did not know that I could just pick another name.
Mhm.
And I had read Cheryl Strayed's book,
Mhm.
um,
Into the Wild.
Into the
Oh.
yeah,
What was it?
and
Was it Into the Wild?
it was wild, just
Wild.
wild.
That's it. Wild. Yeah.
And years ago, and I was like, well, she just picked her name. And so, I thought about it for a while, and it took me about 2.5 years from the divorce before I finally was like, I was I had my maiden name for a short period of time. I had my married name longer than my maiden name. And I was like, I don't really feel like either one of those identifies as me. And so I knew that I wanted to embrace the person that I became in my strength and my just resilience of all the things that I had overcome. I mean, I hiked the freaking Appalachian Trail.
You had a baby when you were 17. And
Right?
And you had another baby at what, 18 or 19? I mean, like, that's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and like, and I know that's like, oh God, every woman does that, but you did it successfully, which
Yeah.
is really a really good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
For you.
I
Yeah.
mean, I graduated from high school with a baby. So I did that. But I said, you know what? I want my name to be, I want it to be Holiday. And I wanted to change my first name, but I couldn't figure out what a last name. And so I sat and I talked with both of my kids. I have a son and a daughter, and they're like, Mom, you can do what a last name does not define you still not being our mom if we don't have the same last name. And
Mm.
so they were both okay. They were like, we give you our blessing or whatever you need for that, but ultimately it's your decision. And um I filled out all the paperwork and I went and I stood in front of a judge, and the best feeling ever was shortly before my 45th birthday, or right at my 46th birthday, I think. I don't even remember. Um, I stood in front of a judge and he said, all right, Miss Holiday, I hope you have a wonderful life. And that was the first time that somebody, he signed the papers, and it was great. And I love to hear people say my name. I love to say my name because it reminds me of all the things that I've overcome, and that I can do anything that I set my mind to.
Well, I love that name. I love you are will always be Jill Holiday, though it took me a while on my phone to change your name. But now that's it. So Jill, when you were coming out, did you have a coming out song?
I
Or
did
was it
not have a specific song. I had a playlist, and as I listened to music and it just spoke to my core, I would add it to that playlist. Into the Wild by LP was one of the ones I listened to on repeat. And oh, I can't think of, there's Wintergreen. There's a couple on there that I listened to on repeat. I don't listen to as much nowadays because I've kind of got out of the messy middle, but when I listen to them, it still just is amazing to me.
when I listen to those songs from that time, it just often takes me back. Sometimes I'll cry too because I remember all the things that I was going through. Now it sounds like you've read a lot of books. So what book has really spoke to you that really changed your perspective on things? Or
Um,
movie? It doesn't have to be.
that changed my perspective on things. Glenn, the ironic thing is Glennon Doyle's Untamed. And I actually, years before that, a friend of mine had given me the Love Warrior book
Yeah.
when I was going through some stuff in my marriage. And I thought, how ironic that
Yeah, that is ironic, isn't it?
that I
You
come
and Glennon
home.
have a lot in common. We just need to find you a soccer star. That's it.
Yes.
Um,
uh,
how would you describe your life now?
my life is it's pretty amazing. I'm blessed. I have a wonderful job or career now. I have a great relationship with both of my kids. I am working on a relationship with my parents. And I'm maintaining some boundaries with the relationships with some of my extended family. But I have the most amazing bonus family and chosen family that I could ever ask for.
I know I'm part of it. So Jill, if people want to like follow you or reach out to you, where are you on social at all?
I am. I'm mostly on Instagram. I do have Facebook just so that I can keep up with my kids. Um, and Instagram, Earthy Crunchy Adventures. And I think you're probably going to tag that in the podcast. So yeah, and that's where I'll probably post my van life stuff there as well.
That's pretty cool. All right, Jill Holiday, it was wonderful to talk to you today, and thank you so much for sharing your story to our audience. You are really an inspiration, and I am so proud to call you my friend.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA plus stories with Anne-Marie Zanzal. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at annemariezanzal.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit annemariezanzal.com. Ooh,